All right, Ted. So we're just gonna do some follow-up questions based on the first interview.
Okay.
Hey, let's switch places. Just because then he doesn't look this way and the camera's over there. So it kind of like sectioned off your life into maybe like 4 or 5 categories. So 1927 you were born, right? And then that was like your childhood, and then up until 1941, which is when the war broke out and you had to move out of the San Gabriel Valley. Then the second section I made is like 1941 to 1945, your life when you were in camp.
Mm-hmm.
Then 1945 to 50/51 till you met Alice, that I put as one part, but you didn't get married till 54. So there's like that dating phase of 1950, 51 to 54, and then 1954 to 2014, which is like 60 years of marriage. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's kind of how I organized it in my head. So I'm gonna go kind of by section, like from childhood. So I'm gonna just basically ask about certain things that wanted to know more information about from your first interview.
Okay.
So in your first interview, you said you were born in what is now known as Rosemead, but at that time was San Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
How long did you live in that area?
Until I think it's 1933.
1933. So you were then how old when you moved?
6.
6 years old. And why did your parents move out of that area?
Because that year, 1932, I believe, there was a big mountain fire above El Tadina, and it burned over a month, day and night. It kept burning. They couldn't put it out like the station fire just recently. And that winter, for the last weekend of 1932, it rained off and on for 7 days straight, and all that mud and debris above Altadena, Pasadena came through so-called drainage ditch, but then the ditches weren't cement lined, and it wasn't, the watershed was too great because of the fire, and so bridges fell, the banks overflowed, and my dad had water going through his field, and it cut gullies in it, so he had a hardship.
So how come he didn't just rebuild
It was too much labor and you needed bigger equipment. He didn't have it.
So,
And it was sort of a bad time, depression.
so he found the land in West Covina?
No, we moved first to Oxnard. He had other Japanese friends that heard about our plight, and so they sort of agreed with another family friend to try to grow Chinese peas in Oxnard.
How long were you in Oxnard for?
I think about a year, if I remember correctly. I was in one grade, and the next year was another class, somewhere else. But when you lived before the war, both parents had to go to work, and under that circumstance, we were just roaming free, like delinquents. And so one week I would be throwing rocks against the Caucasians, and the next week I would be throwing rocks against the Mexicans. It was a funny situation.
What about school? So you had to change schools all the time?
Clothes?
Schools.
Oh, yeah.
So in the San Gabriel Valley, when you were living in San Gabriel, what was like kind of the ethnic diversity at that time? Were there a lot of
Oh.
Japanese Americans there?
We ended up in West Covina area approximately 1936.
So it was 3 years in Oxnard then.
No, a couple of years in Venice.
Oh, Venice.
Mm-hmm.
So after Oxnard, you went to Venice.
Mm-hmm.
Then how long? So you stayed about 2 years in Venice.
Mm-hmm.
Farming as well?
No, my dad and mother were hired by farmers. They went to work as a husband and wife, and they earned a salary, together. My mother was employed also as a cook, to cook meals for
The other farmers.
the owner or the boss, because I think he lost his wife, or the wife went back to Japan. I don't know the situation, but
This man was also Japanese.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so 1933, you moved to Oxnard, stayed there about a year, and then with some friends, with some family friends,
Mm-hmm.
and then moved to Venice to work for another Japanese farmer,
Mm-hmm.
and then in 1936 moved to West Covina.
Mm-hmm.
Why did your dad pick West Covina, or why did your parents choose West Covina?
Well, this so happened that we had good friends in North Hamachi, near Temple City, and they heard of a farmer selling out because he's quitting farming and he's going to move into Hollywood and start a Chinese restaurant.
And is that the land near the Fashion Plaza that you guys leased originally, the 9 acres?
No, we were more toward La Puente.
And at that time, there were many Japanese farmers in the area?
Yeah, there were in succession. Each field was a Japanese family, and so we helped each other out when we were in need to plant cauliflower or transplant in a section of ground to start your crop. You transplanted plants too.
Did they have one of those things, what are they called, kumai, or?
Yeah, they had those too. You belonged to two. I mean, one or the other. There was one called a Sangyo Gumiai, and the other was called a Nihon Jinkai.
So can you explain that, how kumai works?
Yeah, it's Kumiai is like an association, and certain leaders, they want you to join, and then they'll even come to solicit, trying to get you to join their group. And what they do is they used to put on picnics, or they used to have movies, and then they asked people to donate, and that was the Japanese custom. If you're a well-to-do farmer making lots of money, your donation be, by the way, written in sumie and put along the walls of the movie theater.
So the more prosperous farmer would then donate the most amount of money?
Mm-hmm. That was how Japanese, I guess, got recognized. If you're doing well, there's no sweat to donate.
And then then the money was used for what?
I guess for the betterment of the area.
Could you take a loan out of the kumai, or?
Not too well, I don't think. They used to have tanamoshi before the war, and if you had a good friend that had a good. My dad's good friend was a strawberry grower, and he was doing quite well. And so whenever we needed money, he would go over there.
So, is there a reason why people didn't go to the banks?
Beg your pardon?
Why didn't people like your dad or any of the other farmers go to the bank?
Uh, Banks wouldn't loan money to Japanese. In fact, it was sort of hard to even get life insurance unless you bought an endowment policy. That's like a bank account. You know, after so many years, if you had $1,000 endowment, then in 20 years it would be paid up. But you would have put in about almost $1,000.
There was no interest then.
No, it wasn't whole life or term life sold to Japanese.
Because of discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So, your dad was part of. So there was Tanamoshi.
Well, my dad, at one time or another, he used to cross over. You know, but at the end he belonged to the Nihon Jinkai. That's the Japanese kumei, you know, or an association.
How many families would be in one of these?
Quite a few, because if you looked at the pre-war annuals, in like Almonte, Covina, Monrovia, you would see a lot of Japanese family, you know, pictures in there.
And those are generally all in the kumei. That's how you.
Oh no, the fathers were mostly farmers. There were some merchants that sold Japanese food and stuff, but most of them were farmers.
Do you know if these farmers owned their land?
Mm-hmm. They were able, because they were older. The Keon brothers owned land before the war, and there's not too many. Oh, Hashimoto. Later, the Mrs. Taniguchi was Hashimoto, and she was much older. She was born in the teens.
Is that Chie Taniguchi?
Mm-hmm.
So she was one of the people that they gave the title to for the East San Gabriel Valley Japanese Community Center. Is that right?
Yeah, she held that title.
Yeah, she held the title. Why did they choose her to hold the title?
I guess because of age.
She was old enough?
Mm-hmm. She was one of the older nieces. I think she was even older. She had a brother, and the brother, her name was Hashimoto at that time. And the brother never came back, only to visit the parents.
Where did he go?
He went to relocated in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay, so 1936 you moved here, and then 5 years later, the war broke out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? So you were how old again when when the war broke out?
14.
14. So then you were 9. You were 9 when you moved to West Covina.
Mm-hmm, more or less.
Did you have? How were the schools like in West Covina? Was it a big school?
Small 3-room classroom. But when we first moved to West Covina in 1936, it was my sister went to West Covina Grammar School, but I went with the neighbors when I went to Puente Grammar School, and I went to there were 2 schools in Puente. One was called Hudson School, where all the Caucasians went, and I went to Central School, where nothing but Mexicans and other like Japanese mixed in Chinese.
Is that a rule?
Before the war.
So, why didn't you go to the same school as your sister?
I think the principal had something to do with, and my sister had a neighbor Caucasian that sort of talked her into going to West Covina Grammar School. Where I had, my neighbors were Japanese, and they said, "You go to school here," and so I followed them.
Is this the principal, Mr. Krantz, the German guy?
Hmm. He got out of. I guess he was going to school or whatever. He got the job at West Covina, and so when that happened, he came after us in Puente. He came and he put us in his coupe and it drove us to West Covina.
Oh, so you did eventually go to West Covina
Mhm.
Grammar School. So at West Covina Grammar School, was there also like segregated rooms, like or segregated schools?
No,
It was all together.
it's all together, and the majority was Japanese. There were more. At one time, there were more Japanese students than there were Caucasians and Mexicans together.
Because of the number of Japanese farmers in this
Mhm.
area. How many people would you say lived in West Covina at that time? Like, what do you think the population of West
if we
Covina?
took sort of surrounding areas, I would say maybe somewhere around 20 families. In that era, did you know that Japanese farmers got together? There were some skilled cooks, and for the West Covina Grammar School PTA, they used to have chow mein dinners.
Was that very
benefit.
popular?
Huh?
Did the whole community enjoy eating chow mein?
Yeah,
Even the Caucasians?
yeah. Even the Caucasians came. But I would tell you one instance where I was around 9, 10, 11. That the Caucasians would come and they would see those nigiris with black sesame seeds on there, and in those era, everybody had mice in their house, and so this lady looked at the rice and she almost gagged while she was eating it because her mind went the wrong way, and she thought that mice were on that. Sushi.
Droppings?
Yeah.
Mice droppings. So, when you lived in West Covina, what does your house look like? How was it big? Did it have its own land attached to it, like farmland attached to it?
Well, we moved in. I thought we went through it last time, but we moved just before World War II started, around 1939. We moved a Japanese home from El Monte, North El Monte, and then from Temple City we
Garage.
pulled in the garage, and
What did the house look like?
the house had a sort of a Dutch gable roof, and it wasn't too big. It was maybe 40 by 40. Not too big.
How many rooms?
Four rooms: kitchen, living room, dining, and then 2 bedrooms.
One for your parents and one for the rest of the kids?
Yeah, but I lived on the loft above the garage. My two sisters lived stayed in one room. My parents stayed in another room with my other brother, and I slept on the loft.
Did you have another brother?
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't born yet.
He was born just before the war. He slept with my mother, and then Ma's 4 years younger than I am. He slept with my dad.
Oh, so the 2 younger brothers slept with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I see.
Then yeah, that's right. After the war, it was different. My other brother slept with me up in the loft.
Was that kind of like an apartment? Like you had your own apartment?
Well, more or less, it was sort of a fun. It's the roof, the picture of the roof. You had to watch it because if you stood up straight, you would hit the roof.
So you lived there, and then the war broke out, and you moved to. Did you go to an assembly center first?
Mm-hmm.
Which one did you go to?
Pomona Fairgrounds.
And then you went to Heart Mountain. Is
Mm-hmm.
that right? And then at Heart Mountain, did you go to school at Heart Mountain too? High school?
I started out as a sophomore.
And then so you graduated from Heart Mountain High School?
Yes, I did.
And I remember from the last video you talked about how there was an instance where your parents wanted to move back to Japan, and so they wanted to go to Tule Lake Camp.
Well, they wanted to go back to Japan
Why did they want to go back to Japan?
because the farmer neighbors, they signed up to go to Japan, and they had sons my age and older, and the father was more dominant. He was, a tougher guy, and so the sons didn't argue. But I didn't want to go to Japan.
Why?
I'd rather not go to a place where I don't know anyone or what the circumstances are going to be.
If you were to have gone to Japan, would you go back to your parents' homeland, like where they're from, or would it just be they would just take you,
Wherever you
off?
disembark, and then you would try to make contact. I guess I don't know, but I think my friend's family went back to Kumamoto, where they were from.
And how did they say life was there? Like,
Well, it's real critical. I think even the daughter, I can't say, I didn't say any names, but I think the daughter had to sell her body to make ends meet,
wow.
to feed the family.
So, how would you describe your father?
He was 5'2". He weighed maybe 150, 60 pounds, and he was sort of happy-go-lucky, but he was a hard worker. He'd get up before sunup and feed the horse, so the horse would be ready at, go to work at daybreak. And he sat and ate a couple pieces of toast and coffee in the morning, and put some jam on the toast, and he washed it down with coffee, and then he was ready to go to work. But he smoked Bull Durham, and you had to roll your own. And
Did a lot of Japanese farmers smoke? That was common.
it's common.
Mothers too?
Some mothers, they roll their own cigarettes, but they didn't seem to inhale. They didn't really know how to smoke.
So your father was a hard worker. How old was he when you were born?
27 and 12, so he was about 37.
He was 37 when you were born.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So when he went to camp, he was early 50s? Is that right? Did I do the math right?
He was, early 50s.
Early 50s,
About
right?
53.
53 when you went to camp. And then your mom, you said, was 14 years younger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And my dad.
Yeah. So how would you describe your mother?
She knew how to work. She worked and keep up with any other worker. And she wasn't very big, but she was sort of muscular, stringy, and she could hoe weeds or or bunch of vegetables, and I had a hard time keeping up with her. Really. But we worked as a team, after we came back from camp, and we started out farming small, and the laborers that we only hired when we needed laborers. So my mom and I did most of the work.
What about your sisters? You had two older sisters?
Well, one got married in camp, and the other lived in Marshalltown, Iowa, and she was one of those cadet nursing,
WAC? Women's Army Corps?
she was similar, only in the nursing field.
Did she become a nurse after
No,
that?
she's a registered nurse, still living. I got a lot of good hints from her. If you feel faint, put your head between your knees.
Why?
That makes your blood go back down. Your blood is leaving your upper head and it's rushing downwards. Or if you put your head between your knees, the blood will come back.
Does your sister still live in Iowa?
No, she lives in Hollywood. She lives in a nursing home.
So she moved back to this area when?
1951. She went in around 1944 to Iowa, and she came back after she was done.
Did she live with you and your parents?
She came back, but she got a job right away at downtown Los Angeles at not White Memorial. It's the one on west of the Harbor Freeway. Anyway, she became assistant floor supervisor. And she ranked that high, instead of just a RN, she became having a little supervising capabilities.
So when you guys came back from the war, and you and your mom, were the kind of the driving workforce for the family, and then your two younger brothers, were they helping out at all?
If we asked them, but usually one wouldn't work really. The one next to me, he was lucky. He didn't have any responsibilities outside of getting into mischief.
Why was that?
Well, he didn't have any responsibility because he was they call a second son in Japan or Japanese. They don't depend too much on the second son. They depend on the first son.
So your household was like that typical Japanese family where Chonan was taking care of everything.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
It's okay. You're sort of brought up that way. They allow you a little bit more because if you're the Chonan, they let you get away with more stuff. They overlook some stuff.
What did your parents overlook for you?
I don't know about that part, but when everybody was doing judo or kendo, they made sure that you got into that act also. They're looking after their own interests. And by the way, that folder you have about the history of the Japanese Community Center, I'll go on record to say that there was kendo before the war. Judo was held in a dojo in Hamachi along the Rio Hondo River.
So back when I was on service in Sunset, it was Japanese school and kendo?
Yeah, it was kendo before the war.
Oh.
I used to go there. I took Kendo before the war.
Oh. Did you also go to Japanese school there? No.
Yes. Yeah, I went to Japanese school there also.
Did you know Mr. Machida?
Who?
Mr. Machida.
Yeah, he was my neighbor.
Oh, I knew
Before
it
the
when
war.
you said the Fashion Plaza Mall.
Uh-huh.
When you leased that land, his land was right next door, right?
Right.
Did he own that land?
He owned